If you were asked to make a film, you wouldn't film it right afterwards. Research is the first thing you do before you film. Every single good film starts with research. However, you should know these types of data before I explain to you the types of research. First, let's talk about the quantitative data. Quantitative data is information about quantities. In other words, it is numerical information. Some examples of quantitative data would be your height, your shoe size, your weight, etc. Another type of data which sounds similar to quantitative data is qualitative data. Qualitative data is information that can't be measured. Some examples of qualitative data would be based on people's opinions and open questions. Next, there is primary and secondary data. Primary data is research you do yourself to find out about your particular product, audience, and approach. It is done by you, not anyone else. This can be you making a questionnaire or asking people directly with experience. With that being said, secondary data is where you find information which already exists. An example would be web searches. Primary data is more reliable than secondary data as it is research you do yourself, whereas secondary data may have errors or may contain outdated information. Finally, there is discrete and continuous data. Discrete data is data that can be listed and counted. Examples would be the number of chickens in a farm or the number of pages in a book. On the other hand, continuous data is data that cannot be listed and counted. Examples of continuous data would be time, mass, and length. Now that you know all these types of data, these are the types of research you should do before making a film. For me personally, I would like to start with desk research before audience research. This is because you will have a deeper understanding of the genre of your film before you research into the audience. If you don't know what to film at this point, make a list of all genres of film you want to make, and once you're done, you start to reject some ideas that are too ambitious to make. For example, you wouldn't want to film a comedy or sci-fi film because it's just too hard, unless you're a comedian or a really good editor. Now, I'm not saying you can't do it, but it will be very challenging. Now that you narrow down your list into 1 or 2 genres, you should start to do some secondary research about them, as you will learn from what others have produced. As you search up for the genre of the film you're going to make in Google, you may come across websites such as Wikipedia, Rotten Tomatoes, etc. These sources, for example, Wikipedia, may be unreliable as anyone can edit the site, meaning that you can be reading and using sources from a kid. However, if you're more advanced, you may do some research on online reference systems such as EBSCO. It is more reliable as they only contain sources which are credible and venerable, meaning that it is done by someone trustable and well experienced into that subject. Either way, a good student would use a method called triangulation. This is where you will look at all the different types of sources as they are from different perspectives, allowing you to analyze your final approach to the film more consistently. In this case, you should look at Wikipedia, Rotten Tomatoes, and EBSCO to triangulate the sources and to come up with a consistent conclusion of the filming requirements for the genre of your film. You should also watch some student award-winning films. These are short and makeable, whereas films from the cinemas are just too ambitious to make. Take notes and extract information from the film such as the location, iconography used, clothing, visual effects, etc. What you shouldn't do is sit back and watch as you wouldn't be learning anything. You should now start to do some research into the audience as you are now starting to develop a better understanding for the genre of your film. Audience research is essential as you are making a film for them and not for you. You may want to make a questionnaire or focus group depending on what type of data you prefer. I would do both if I were you. Questionnaires are good if you're collecting quantitative data. This is where you ask yes-no questions or on a scale of 1 to 10. These are simple questions so you can present your data easier, whereas questions based on people's opinions are more complicated, making it messy when it comes to presenting your data. You should avoid asking long answer questions or qualitative questions in a questionnaire, and you should include a filter question to ensure that the respondents will be able to answer subsequent questions. Finally, don't just send it to your friends, send it to everyone. If you only send it to your friends, you'd only get to know your sample, the people you asked, and not the real audience. This will be biased and you should avoid that. If you're planning to make a horror film, here are some good examples you may want to ask your audience. For example, why is it that you watch horror films and what are your fears? And of course, there are also bad examples you should avoid, like Do you eat popcorn when watching horror films, or do you use your phone before the movie starts? As you can see, good examples contain information that is precise and relevant, whereas bad examples contain information which is irrelevant. I mean, why would you care if people eat popcorn in a horror movie? Now let's move on to focus groups. If you prefer qualitative data, then creating a focus group will be better than a questionnaire. A focus group is where you gather a specific target audience, not more than 5, and ask them their opinions on certain things. You should aim to have multiple focus groups. It is recorded as you need to analyze it. It's like an interview, and it's a great way to collect qualitative data. You may want to pick specific and capable people. By this, I mean you may want to gather some capable students from different year groups to answer and give their opinions to your questions. You may want to ask the people if you sent out a questionnaire if they're willing to do a focus group or not. Again, a good student will triangulate and send out a questionnaire to obtain quantitative data as well as organizing a focus group. This is to obtain different perspectives and to be more consistent when analyzing. Now that you've collected both these types of data, you need to present it. This is to show others what you have found out and how it has impacted the making of your film. When it comes to presenting your quantitative data, you may decide to use bar graphs, pie charts, line graphs, scatter graphs, etc. However, for your qualitative data, you shouldn't really use bar graphs or pie charts. You may want to use quotes or make a general statement from the information you've obtained from your focus groups. You may also want to summarize all your points as well. This is where you write and analyze all the information given by your focus groups. For your discrete data, you should use pie charts and bar graphs. And finally, for your continuous data, you should use scatter graphs and bar graphs. Now that I've talked through everything you need to know, here are our final few things to sum up. Firstly, ask yourself if anyone wants to watch your film. Remember, you are making a film for them and not for yourself. Secondly, follow these steps. Don't just skip desk research or whatever because you think it's useless. Follow them all and I bet you'll be successful as you make your film. And finally, don't make up your own answers in your questionnaire. You're just lying to yourself. But anyways, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button down below, and also, as you do that, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you later.